Hey, what's going on, everybody? Mike here from Artifact Addiction. So a couple videos ago, Tika and I had mentioned that we were going to do a series of videos kind of showcasing some of the points that we had found from different time periods, and we figured we'd start the whole thing off with some of our more paleo finds. I do have to apologize right off the get-go if I sound a little bit under the weather. I'm kind of stuck at home with COVID, so that stinks. Not to mention the foot of snow that we have here. So it's actually a good time of the year for me to put this little series together. I figured I'd cover some paleo stuff. We'll move on down to archaic, woodland, Mississippi, and that sort of thing. So I'll get this kicked off here with some paleo stuff. I'm going to go through just a couple of the brokes here. And throughout showcasing each point, I think I'll throw up the finds on there, the actual pull videos. I'll include those. So I did want to include a few of these that we had on here from the past that I'm pretty sure are paleo, but unfortunately they were broke. And I'll just start off with this piece right here. This came from a site that we call the Madison site, but it's actually very multicultural. Find a lot of stuff there. You can see absolutely how thin that is. And in that video, I think that was one of the first points I found that day. And I think it was maybe a paleo lance. I'm not really sure. It does have some heavy grinding all the way up to about right there. But unfortunately, the base is broken there. But just incredible craftsmanship on that. So not sure exactly what it was. So if anybody's got any idea, let me know. This here is another point that Tika found, and it's busted up. But it comes from one of our favorite sites that we find quite a bit of early archaic and some transitional paleo stuff that I'll show you here in a few minutes, I guess. This point I believe to be like a transitional paleo high-low point. And looking at one of the books that I have, I collect a lot of books. Like this paleo book here is for anybody that's a book collector. This is a great one to have right here. I think it's by that Laura Hotham. And as far as paleo, this is an incredible book. But this point right here, I was researching in one of my books, and I don't even know if you can find it anymore. I think it's an Illinois artifact book, and it's put out by the Illinois Archaeological Society. And in that, it talks all about high-low points, which are pretty common to our area here in the upper Midwest. And it talks about how the high-low point transitioned from more of a concave base, more paleo-style looking point to having early side notches. And I think that this is exactly what this is. It is, you can still see a concave base there. It is very heavily ground in here, very heavily ground inside the hafting area. And you can just see the little tiny beginning of side notches there. So I think that's what that is. And coming from the site where it came from, there's multiple high-lows there that we found. So that's kind of one of the reasons I believe that to be there. Actually, quite a few of these came from that site. This also came from that site. And this came probably 20 yards from where we found two paleo points. And it also is very heavily ground up to about right there. And you can just barely feel it right there. You can see where it kind of curves back in there at the bottom. And, with it being broken, I'm not 100% sure. But with as heavy as it is ground up to about there, it definitely has that possible that high-low shape if the base here would have been concave. So that's one I threw in there. This also came from that same site. And when we found it, Tika actually found this point, and unfortunately it was broke. You see it's got a pretty heavy bevel there. She, I don't think she videoed it because she knew it was broke right away. And then she showed me later, and I thought, holy cow, it's very heavily ground all through here and in the hafting region. And, a lot of people thought that was probably a quad. So possibly a quad there, transitional paleo, early archaic. So that could possibly be one as well. So there's those 4 points that are mostly broke, but, I think are in the origin of paleo time period. This point also came from that site. And this is another one that we do have the pull that I'm going to pull up. I'm going to put up here, after I show it to you here. And you can see that the base is broke here, and you can see that the base has a little bit of a broke spot there. So that those ears would have been a little bit longer there on the base, and you could see how it's got a little bit of a concaveness to it. Very heavily ground right in through there. And the hafting actually, the grooves or the notches here are very, very heavily ground. And being as it's right in the same exact location as quite a few of the high-lows that we found, this could be another one of those, I would say like late high-lows where they started to develop more side notching. So could be transitional paleo to early archaic. So I threw that one in there just for example. So we'll go ahead and throw that pull up there for you and check that out. All right. Looks very nice too.
I like the brightness of it.
Yeah, it's got like a little pink base
too. Not like a chalky white. It's actually
it's very,
it's like
very nice material.
Check out that.
I was saying when it was on the ground, it looks like a little Brewerton side notch. Tiny, tiny little notches.
Here's that white like that.
It could be like tiny little chips. Look at the tiny little notches in it. Oh yeah, solid point. All right, so the next point that I'm going to showcase here is this piece here, which I went back through our records and I don't think that we have the video anymore, unfortunately. I do have the in-situ pictures, so we'll go ahead and throw those up here, and then some of the pictures of it right after it was taken out of the ground. This came from a site that's in the same general location as most of this stuff. It's just basically across the road, same river system there. And this point here, Tika actually found early on when we started looking for points. So at the time, we weren't exactly sure what it was, but looking at it now, and we've talked to some local archaeology people here, and believe it to be a high-low type. It's got a pretty heavy bevel there, so it's been used a lot, heavily resharpened. It does have some grinding. You can see a little shoulder there, right up to about there. It's pretty heavily ground. A little bit in here in the concave base. And I don't know if you can see it here in the video, but it has some absolute beautiful flaking that goes from the base all the way up the face of it, right to the tip. So very long thinning strikes, which is, I think it's pretty common there for the high-low type and that transitional paleo sort of stuff. So that's probably one of the first ones I think that we found. Like I said, I don't have the in-situ, but I do, or excuse me, I don't have the video of the pull, but I do have the in-situ picture, so I think I'll throw that up there right after that. So we'll put that in there for you. And then the next piece that I'm going to showcase is a piece that came from the same site as this. I had said that there was multiple paleo pieces that came from this site. So there was this, and then this was the next one that I had found. And this kind of validated, the fact that there were transitional paleo points in that site. So at first, when I first pulled this, you'll see the actual pull. And, I think I yelled it was clovis. I have a tendency to do that and sound stupid later in the video. A lot of people thought it was a clovis. I did take it to a local archaeological fella that I know, and he believes it to be a really nice high-low point. In some of the pictures you can see, it's hard to pick it up here, but all the way up here, it looks like a flute. When I first picked it out of the dirt, you can see how dusty it was. And like I said, I'll show you. Oh, you can see it right there. I believe it just to be a big thinning flake now, but I did think it was a flute at first, just pretty skinny for that. So I showed him, and he does think it's just a super quality high-low point, very well made. Because a lot of times the high-low points can be pretty clunky. So there's no thinning strikes on that side, but just a beautiful example of a transitional or late paleo point. This is a point that Tika had found. Oh, I'll go ahead and throw that pull up there as well. I may be catching up. I got one in the ground here. I'm hoping it's whole. We'll see. Maybe I cut her lead in half.
We'll see.
There's not much going this way, so I don't know. Oh wow.
That counts.
Oh wow.
Is that a paleo piece?
Oh wow. You think that's a freaking clovis? Holy crap. If it's not, it's like a high-low.
I'd say it looks like a high-low.
Holy smokes. It looks fluted on that side.
It does.
Fluted or just like a big... It's definitely
That's the find of the day.
paleo or transitional
Did that
paleo.
count for more than 1 point?
Oh man, score, huh?
All right, hopefully you enjoyed that one. That was definitely a surprise to find that piece. This piece also caught us by surprise. And this piece Tika found, and she actually found this piece maybe 30 yards from where I had found this piece. And this was, you know, quite a few hunts after this piece, but in the same general area. So in the pull, I'll put that up there as well, that you could only see about this much in the ground. And at first, you know, we both thought it was like a hafted scraper, you know, broken point that looked like it had been blunted off. And then I remember saying to her, I said, well, wait, before you pull that out, I said, what if this happens to be the base right here? You know, and we kind of laughed about it, figuring out it's probably just a hafted scraper. And then in the pull, you'll see, you know, the surprise that we had when she pulled this thing out. And, you know, our jaws just dropped. This thing is just absolutely beautiful. And we were very uncertain at first what it was. This thing also has, I thought at first that maybe had a decent bevel to it, but it doesn't look like it. Beautiful flaking. I don't know if it picks it up really well here with the color of the material. But with this super concave base, I wasn't sure exactly what it was. So we went back, did some research, and what we found was, we thought it was a Wheeler type. I believe it's like a Wheeler excurvative or something, however it's pronounced. And a lot of people commented back and said, you know, definitely looks like a Wheeler, just very odd, you know, that it would be found that far north. This was found in northern Indiana. So definitely not a point Wheeler type. You wouldn't generally find this far north, but it does resemble that with that very heavily concave base. So I brought this piece to the same archaeological fella that I had that had a couple of these other points looked at, and instantly he thought the same thing as far as being late paleo, transitional paleo, but he actually thought it was just a very heavily concaved high-low. And once I told him that this came from about 30 yards from there, and he said this was most likely a high-low, then he said, yeah, without a doubt, this probably related. He said, obviously, it's probably just a little bit more concave than most, but most likely another transitional paleo high-low point. Just a super example, 100%, nothing broken on it. And it does have a little bit of grinding. It's pretty soft, which is funny because at first I told him, I said, I don't think there's any grinding on it. And when you look at Wheeler in the description, it says in there that that the Wheeler doesn't generally have any grinding, you know. And he pointed out, he said, well, they're not always ground that far up. And, you know, he's right, because it's actually ground very heavily. You can see like a little bit of I won't say an ear right there, but it's only ground about right there. Maybe, I don't know, 3/16 or 3/8 of an inch. Very small. Yeah, it's ground to about, you can feel it's pretty sharp right there, and about right there it's ground. So very light grinding. Yeah, you can see where it stops right about there. So I believe he is correct, and that's probably another high-low point. Just a super example. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up the pull for that.
I don't know what it is. I guess we'll see.
It looks good, but it also looks...
Maybe like a blunt?
Yeah, it's hard to tell if it's which way it's going.
Right.
Or is it just cement, a broken cemented? Oh, it's good.
Got a lot of... Oh.
Oh,
Wow.
dude, it is what I said.
Paleo piece of
Oh
meat.
my gosh.
Oh my God.
She thought it was going the other way, and I
I'm trying
said,
to get out of the sun.
I'll bring it over this
Okay.
side. And I said that, she goes, I think it's going this way, and I said, what if that's the base? What if that's the base on the bottom? And it is.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Is it flawless?
Yeah, like 100%. This is maybe 20 yards from where I found that paleo piece last year.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's a clovis or a high-low or whatever it may be. It's literally about right there.
Oh, I did not expect that. I thought it was a little blunt.
Did I not say that?
Say that.
I go, what if this is the base right here?
It was a cement.
Yeah, it looked like it was a blunt going the other way. Dude, a killer.
All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that pull as well. Certainly last but not least is probably my favorite paleo point that I found just this past summer. For one, because It's a little bit different type than a high-low. And it was found very local to where I live here, maybe 10 minutes or so away. It was found on a site that I actually found my very first projectile point ever. So it means a lot to me. I walk that site every year, and there's some years that I don't find anything. So this year was actually really fun. I found 2 points there when I was walking. One made of Indiana green, very beautiful point. I think it was really archaic. And then just before I was leaving, I happened to find this here point. And this one caused quite a bit of attention, especially with my local area. Who, we don't have a ton of paleo points here, mainly because just my geological, I guess, location. We were covered in, I guess you'd say, the glacier area for a lot longer than most areas. So when I was talking to the archaeological guy that was kind of going through these points with me, he was giving giving me a rundown of how far the glaciers came down in the Michigan area. And basically what he was saying was, in the lower part of Michigan, there was just a little sliver of land that wasn't covered in ice, and most everything else was. And then once that ice started to retreat, then you started to get, people that were moving into the area. So it's very hard to find, I guess you'd say, like maybe clovis points that are going to go back, 13, 14,000 years, because most of the area here was still covered in ice at that time. So this point, he thought was very interesting when I showed him, and the conclusion that he came up with was he thinks it is a Barnes type point. And a lot of you guys probably don't know what that is. Maybe some of you do. The Barnes type point is pretty common, I guess, for Michigan into like New York, Ontario, that sort of thing. And he was actually doing a presentation when I talked to him at one of the local universities, and he was doing a presentation on paleo stuff. So I brought most of the stuff with me, so it was a very good talk that I had with him. And he thought for sure this was a Barnes type point. Unfortunately, it has this little chip off the base here. It is not fluted. You can see anywhere there. It does happen to have, though, right here, almost looks like what he thought, and I thought as well, was maybe a nipple, like a platform to be, set up for fluting. And maybe it just never got fluted. I don't know. The material is not the best, so maybe they thought twice about trying to flute it and break it. What is neat about it is you can see that the grinding on it, or basically goes from the base all the way up to there. You can see where it stops right there. So this is ground just as smooth as can be, all the way up to there, and same all the way up to right there. You can see where it starts to turn back in. So the point on this thing is only about, I don't know, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch long. And then when you flip it over, it has quite the impact fracture that goes from the tip all the way down to where my thumb is right here. So most likely, him and I were talking, and it was probably considerably longer at one time. The Barnes type point is late Paleo. It's between 9 and 11,500 years old, and they're generally a medium to pretty large point, for that matter. And with this being as small as it is, it's probably was a lot longer than this. Obviously, with the grinding goes all the way up to here, and with the impact fracture that goes down to there. So this thing was probably broke at one point, and then all retouched up to make a new tip on it. And you can see the impact fracture there by my thumb. So just an incredible find for me. And he looked at it for quite a while, and couldn't say enough about it. He was just super excited that we brought it in to show him, and kind of share that with him, because there's not a lot. Like I said, there's not a lot of paleo stuff found in the area. So he was pretty excited about that. So I walked over here, and I could not kind of believe it. Check this out. Look at this. Tell me that doesn't look like a clovis. I know there's a little tiny bit of a base ding. That looks pretty paleo to me. I don't even know what to say. See what was laying?
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Look at this point. If that ain't paleo. Oh yeah. I mean, it's full of dirt, but it feels heavily ground. Yeah, it's all flaked really heavy here. It's ground all the way up to here, guys. This whole thing is ground. Oh, it's a shame it's got a little bit of a ding. But how do you complain about that?
So anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. I know, like I said, this is a little bit different than our normal videos, but being as it's in the middle of winter, I figured we'd throw some stuff up here and kind of showcase some of our previous points. If you like what you guys saw, I'm going to throw up a couple links here, and there'll be a link to our latest video. I did a hunt here at the end of 2021 on one of my favorite little early archaic sites, and had one heck of a day. And I'll throw up another link there for to showcase I think this Barnes Paleo point here when I found it in Michigan. Has a bunch of other Michigan finds in it as well. So I'll put that up there. Go ahead and link onto that. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit that like button. And I'm also going to throw up, so that last video that Tika and I were in together, or this, maybe it was the last one actually that I did for the year. I had talked about that Tika and I were busy the last couple months deer hunting. Well, I had a lot of people ask me, how'd you do this year? So I might try to throw up a couple photos of some of our success as well for deer hunting. Anyway, guys, hope everybody's having a good winter, and I will probably be back in a few weeks, and we'll do an archaic video. So hit that subscribe button, and we'll take care, guys. See ya.